Since the earliest times, the British monarchy has been shrouded in a veil of symbolism and power that transcends the limits of the visible. For many, the throne is not just a political symbol, but also a spiritual one, representing the connection between the earthly and the divine. The secular rituals, the sacred artifacts, and the carefully preserved traditions create an almost mystical atmosphere, where each element seems to carry hidden meanings, many of which still challenge modern historians. At the center of this structure, monarchs bear not only political responsibilities, but also the weight of spiritual expectations and the influence of forces that many believe to be beyond human control. Welcome to another night, where mysteries never sleep. I am Midnight, and this is 7 Nights. When Charles III assumed the throne, a peculiar detail began to attract attention: the abnormal swelling of his hands, which many attributed to medical conditions. However, in a monarchy where every gesture is wrapped in symbolism, could this condition be merely physical, or might it be the manifestation of something deeper? Could the king's hands be revealing more than they appear? After all, what do they really mean in the context of an institution so laden with historical and spiritual secrets? The British monarchy has always been more than a political institution. Its traditions and symbols are imbued with meanings that intertwine with spirituality and mysticism. If you think the monarchy is just pomp, castles, and scandals, hold on tight. There's an invisible layer to this story that's going to blow your mind. At the center of it all is the monarch's body, a reflection not only of physical health, but also of the monarch's role as a spiritual figure. For centuries, it was believed that the sovereign's body was a mirror of the soul, a canvas on which invisible energies could be perceived in tangible form. Hands, in particular, hold deep symbolism across various cultures and religions. In the Christian tradition, for instance, hands are often associated with divine action, blessing, healing, protecting. For a king, whose hands are anointed with sacred oil during the coronation, this symbolism is intensified. They become tools of power and divine authority, representing his connection to something greater than himself. But what does it mean when those very hands begin to swell inexplicably? When Charles III took the throne, he drew attention not only for his personal history or for his position as heir to a long lineage, but for this peculiar detail. His hands, visibly swollen in various public appearances, were initially attributed to medical conditions such as arthritis or fluid retention. However, for many, the medical explanation seemed insufficient. After all, could something as symbolic as the hands of a monarch carry hidden meaning? Historically, the bodies of monarchs were seen as extensions of the nation itself. In the Middle Ages, it was believed that the king's health directly influenced the well-being of the kingdom. This belief became known as the doctrine of the two bodies: the natural body, subject to illness and mortality, and the political body, symbolizing the eternal state. Thus, any alteration in a monarch's physical body could be interpreted as a portent for the realm. Could the swelling in Charles's hands be a warning of something greater about to happen? In esotericism, hands hold a special role as instruments of energetic balance. Practices such as Kabbalah associate the fingers with specific divine attributes called sphirot, which govern existence. A hand imbalance could, theoretically, indicate a rupture in the harmony between the spiritual and material planes. In this context, Charles's swollen hands could symbolize an energetic imbalance affecting not only him personally, but also the full symbolic weight he carries as sovereign. Another intriguing angle arises from alchemical traditions. In alchemy, hands represent the capacity for transmutation, the ability to turn lead into gold, to overcome difficulties and achieve perfect balance between body and spirit. From this perspective, swollen hands might suggest an incomplete transformation. Could Charles be incapable of handling the energies associated with the throne? Coronation rituals also reinforce the importance of hands as tools of divine power. During the ceremony, sacred oil is applied to the monarch's hands, consecrating them to fulfill his earthly mission. But what happens when the bearer of that power faces internal or external resistance? Could the swollen hands indicate that Charles, even after decades of preparation, is not spiritually aligned with the role he has assumed? History offers other examples of monarchs whose physical conditions were interpreted as reflections of spiritual or political events. Henry VIII, with his chronic wounds and drastic physical changes, was seen as a sign of the spiritual unrest caused by his break with the Catholic Church. Could Charles's health, then, be viewed as an echo of this ancient belief? Some modern theorists suggest that the king's swollen hands may be an external manifestation of the internal pressures of his reign. The expectation of maintaining ancestral traditions while navigating modern and controversial times could be generating tension that is physically manifesting. But is that all? Or is there something invisible, perhaps intangible, influencing his condition? Another, more mystical view suggests that the king may be absorbing energies stemming from centuries of rituals, symbols, and events surrounding the throne. In spiritual tradition, it is believed that places and objects imbued with history, such as the imperial crown or the throne of Saint Edward, carry accumulated energy that can affect those who are more sensitive. With his inclination towards spiritual subjects, Charles could be particularly susceptible to these influences. In many cultures, it is believed that the human body carries hidden messages. Physical changes, such as swelling or deformities, can be interpreted as signs of energetic blockages or imbalances. Charles's hands, therefore, could be more than a health issue. They could be a warning, a reflection of something that needs to be resolved, both on an individual level and a collective one. Throughout history, leaders with great spiritual or political responsibilities often bore physical marks that were seen as signs. From the royal touch in the Middle Ages, when monarchs were credited with the ability to cure diseases, to modern figures who attract popular symbolism, the leader's body has always been central to mysterious interpretations. What if Charles's hands are the next chapter in this tradition? Why specifically the hands? They do not merely hold the scepter. They also extend blessings and carry divine authority. When something appears out of the ordinary, what might that mean for the symbolic structure of an entire realm? What is clear is that, regardless of any medical or spiritual explanation, Charles's hands have drawn global attention. Are they a reflection of human fragility or a silent warning of the forces that have always surrounded the British throne? The history of the Templars is rife with secrets, intrigues, and an aura of mystery that seems to transcend centuries. When Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Order, was condemned to the stake in 1314, it is believed that he cursed his persecutors, King Philip IV of France and Pope Clement V. This curse is said to have echoed through the generations, affecting not only the direct descendants of these men, but also other European dynasties, including the British monarchy. Could this distant event still influence the descendants who bear the weight of these lineages? Connections between the Templars and the British monarchy are not mere speculation. During the persecution of the order, many Templar members fled to Scotland, where they found refuge under nobles who would later forge ties with the English royalty. There are historical records that esoteric practices and symbols associated with the Templars blended into the local culture, even influencing the foundations of Freemasonry, an organization famously linked to the monarchy. Windsor Castle, one of the royal family's most iconic residences, is often cited as a site of great spiritual significance. It is believed that the castle was built on grounds that, in ancient times, were used for pagan rituals, and that its architecture incorporates geomantic principles, such as astrological alignments. Could these elements be an indirect legacy of the Templars, carrying secrets and energies that still resonate with the castle's occupants? Jacques de Molay's curse also resonates in the tragic events that have marked the history of the British monarchy. The execution of Charles I in 1649 is seen by some as a moment of spiritual rupture, a partial payment of a karmic debt. Decades later, the abdication of Edward VIII in 1936 brought another crisis to the throne, and the tragic death of Diana, Princess of Wales, in 1997 further fueled the notion that invisible forces surround the royal family. Are these events mere coincidences, or could they be connected to an ancestral weight that was never fully resolved? At the heart of these theories is the belief that energies generated by profound injustices do not simply vanish. In the Templars' case, the betrayal and suffering of their members may have left an energetic mark on Europe's spiritual fabric. According to esoteric thought, this mark may manifest as a form of cosmic debt, affecting anyone connected in some way to the original events. But how can one measure the effects of something so intangible? Templar symbolism also reflects the monarchy's spiritual role. The knights were seen as defenders of the faith, a title that now belongs to Charles III. Like the Templars, the king is also expected to mediate between the divine and the human, bearing a responsibility that goes beyond the material plane. Yet is it possible that this title carries with it an added burden, a spiritual load now made evident in Charles's health conditions? Another fascinating aspect involves rumors that the Templars hid sacred artifacts, such as the Holy Grail, on British soil. These artifacts, if they exist, would be anchors of immeasurable spiritual energy. Windsor Castle, Westminster Abbey, and other sites linked to royalty are frequently at the center of these theories. Could these places, steeped in history and symbolism, be directly influencing those who dwell under their roofs? The connection with the Templars also brings to light a recurring cycle that seems to haunt the monarchy. Just as the order faced betrayal and destruction, the British royal family has undergone generations of scandals, tragedies, and crises. From Elizabeth I, who was accused of witchcraft to maintain her power, to the modern challenges faced by Charles, the notion that the throne is engaged in a spiritual battle does not seem all that far-fetched. The royal lineage bears more than titles and riches. It carries a spiritual heritage that spans centuries. Theories suggest that traumas and significant events can be passed down energetically from generation to generation, a concept known as cellular memory or ancestral burden. In Charles's case, his hands may be a physical manifestation of this invisible legacy. After all, what must it be like to bear the symbolic weight of centuries of intrigues, betrayals, and curses? Nor can we ignore the occult practices that have surrounded the throne. Over the centuries, ceremonies and rituals linked to royalty have incorporated esoteric elements, such as the use of sacred oil in the anointing of kings. Some believe these rituals not only connect the monarch to the divine, but also expose him to forces he may not fully understand. Charles's hands, anointed during his coronation, may be reacting to an energy much older than he imagines. Theorists also point to Charles's role as defender of the faith, a title he carries somewhat ambivalently. His inclination toward alternative spiritualities may have put him at odds with the throne's traditional symbolism. Could this conflict be generating an imbalance reflected in his body? The relationship between the Templars and the monarchy raises another question. How aware is Charles of these influences? Throughout his life, he has shown an interest in history and spirituality, but does he fully understand the invisible forces surrounding the throne he now occupies? For many, the Templars' curse is not just a warning from the past, but a reminder that historical events carry consequences that can span generations. Charles III, with his swollen hands and the weight of a throne steeped in symbolism, may simply be the latest example of how the spiritual legacy of history continues to shape the present. Whether mere coincidence or something more, the patterns connecting the Templars and the British monarchy are hard to ignore. The tragedies, the physical signs, and the spiritual conflicts seem to form a continuous cycle. But if this connection is real, who will be able to break it and restore balance to the British throne? The castles and palaces of the British monarchy have always been more than just residences. It's not just a beautiful place to snap photos and have tea. These castles seem to hide secrets that would make any suspense author jealous. They are monuments of power and tradition, designed to convey authority and continuity. Yet beyond their architectural magnificence, many believe these places hold deeper secrets, connected to esoteric practices, hidden symbolism, and astrological alignments. Among them, Windsor Castle stands out as one of the most enigmatic centers. Built in the 11th century by William the Conqueror, Windsor Castle is more than a fortress. Its location was carefully chosen, and historical records suggest the site had already been used by ancient tribes for spiritual rituals. Archaeological excavations in the area have uncovered pre-Roman artifacts, indicating that the land was a gathering place for cultures that believed in its special energy. But what makes Windsor so peculiar? The castle's layout appears to follow geomantic principles, an esoteric practice that uses geographic positioning to channel natural energies. Some theories indicate that the castle sits on a ley line, an energetic path connecting power points around the world. Among these points are places like Stonehenge, Glastonbury, and even Canterbury Cathedral. Could this invisible network influence events and the people who inhabit Windsor? The castle's architecture also includes elements that intrigue symbolism scholars. Within its chapel, for instance, there are stained glass windows that, beyond depicting Christian themes, incorporate images that some interpret as references to esoteric orders such as the Templars and Freemasonry. For centuries, theories have suggested these societies played a role in building and maintaining monarchical power. But how much of this symbolism is mere decoration, and how much is coded messaging for initiates. Another peculiarity of Windsor is its connection to the heavens. Historical accounts indicate that significant events such as royal coronations and weddings were held on dates carefully chosen based on astrological alignments. During Elizabeth I's reign, royal astrologers played a crucial role in selecting these moments, believing that the position of the stars could ensure stability and prosperity. That practice may have officially fallen out of use, but could it still influence decisions behind the scenes? Windsor's environment also appears to exert a mysterious influence on its inhabitants. Many members of the royal family have reported strange sensations while residing in the castle. Phenomena like inexplicable noises, abrupt temperature drops, and the sensation of being watched have been reported by visitors and staff for centuries. Could these events be explained by residual energies, or is there something more sinister lurking in the castle's corridors? The rituals performed at Windsor reinforce this aura of mystery. The anointing ceremony, a crucial part of the coronation, is carried out with sacred oil prepared according to traditions dating back to antiquity. Some theorists suggest this process involves more than religion. It is a means of connecting the monarch to the castle's energies. If that is true, what happens when the sovereign is not spiritually aligned with the environment? The relationship between architecture and spiritual energy is not exclusive to Windsor. Other royal castles and cathedrals also display characteristics that raise suspicions. Westminster Abbey, for example, is considered another significant energetic point where generations of monarchs have been crowned. Its construction features proportions that follow sacred geometry, an ancient concept associating specific shapes with universal harmony. But were these choices purely aesthetic, or were they intentional? Additionally, rumors persist that places like Windsor House relics that carry considerable spiritual weight. The Stone of Scone, used in coronations, is one example. It is believed to possess its own energy, accumulated over centuries of ritual use. When Charles was crowned, he was in direct contact with this stone. Could that explain some of the changes his body appears to reflect? There's also the question of what these places have witnessed over the centuries. Wars, betrayals, executions, and even secret rituals have taken place on these grounds. Many spiritual traditions suggest that events charged with intense emotion leave invisible marks on their environments. In Windsor's case, could these energies have accumulated, affecting its occupants over time? Even outside esotericism, science acknowledges that the environment can influence health and well-being. Natural electromagnetic fields, for example, are known to affect mood and energy levels. Some scholars speculate that locations like Windsor Castle might amplify these effects due to the site's unique geological features. Charles, who is sensitive to spiritual and ecological topics, could be especially susceptible to these influences. Another point worth considering is Windsor's role as a symbol of monarchical power. For centuries, it has been the center of political and spiritual decisions, shaping the United Kingdom's fate. With this weight of history, could the castle be more than just a physical space, maybe even a living entity influencing its occupants? Windsor's history is filled with details that intertwine with the broader narrative of royal power. Yet these details, often overlooked, may contain answers to the mysteries surrounding not only Charles but the monarchy itself. If Windsor Castle truly is a point of energetic convergence, what impact would there be for a king whose hands show a possible imbalance? Is the castle shaping the king, or is the king altering the castle's energies? The secrets surrounding Windsor are far from fully uncovered. But one thing is certain: the invisible forces inhabiting its halls will continue to fuel theories and questions as long as the monarchy stands. The British monarchy, with its millennial traditions, has never been immune to predictions and omens pointing to its decline or transformation. Among these prophecies, few are as intriguing as those of Nostradamus, the famous seer of the 16th century. In his cryptic verses, Nostradamus is said to have foreseen events of great impact for European kingdoms, including the United Kingdom. Some interpreters suggest he predicted that the reign of a British monarch would come to an abrupt end, signaling an irreversible shift in the established order. Could Charles III be the central figure of this prophecy? The idea of cycles in the monarchy is not new. Historians and theorists highlight repetitive patterns over the centuries. Unexpected deaths, abdications, and even executions have punctuated moments of transition. Charles I was executed in 1649, temporarily breaking the monarchy's unbroken line. Edward VIII, centuries later, abdicated the throne for love, creating a political and symbolic void. Will Charles III's reign be yet another of these turning points? Nostradamus's prophecies are not alone in involving the British monarchy. Another widely discussed prediction is that of Mother Shipton, an English mystic from the 16th century, who is said to have prophesied the end of the monarchy as we know it. According to some accounts, she stated, "The crown shall fall when the south winds rule the north." Although the interpretation of this phrase remains uncertain, many believe it hints at a moment of instability or radical change. Charles, who ascended the throne during a time of public questioning about the monarchy's relevance, may be witnessing the start of this process. The symbolism of Charles's swollen hands also appears as a possible piece in the puzzle. In several spiritual traditions, physical changes in a leader are seen as reflections of larger forces at play. In Celtic mythology, for instance, physical deformities in kings were interpreted as signs that their time on the throne was ending. In some cases, these bodily changes were viewed as an indication that the leader was no longer able to mediate between the earthly and spiritual worlds. Historical context reinforces these beliefs, and Boleyn, Henry VIII's second wife, is said to have dreamed of her own execution before her fall from grace. King John, famous for signing the Magna Carta, experienced a series of misfortunes before his death, interpreted as signals of his impending doom. Though often relegated to the realm of superstition, these stories fuel the notion that seemingly trivial events can serve as omens of something greater. Another link between Charles and the prophecies involves the idea of transformation. Some interpreters of Nostradamus suggest that the foretold end is not necessarily destructive but symbolic, representing a transition to something new. In this sense, Charles's reign, though possibly brief, could be the catalyst for profound changes in the monarchical structure. Could the monarchy, as we know it, be undergoing an irreversible metamorphosis? These changes can also be observed in the growing importance of public opinion for the monarchy's survival. In recent years, scandals involving royal family members have cast doubt on its relevance. The death of Princess Diana was one such moment, triggering a wave of criticism and scrutiny of the institution. If Charles's hands are indeed a harbinger, could they be signaling a definitive break between the monarchy and the people it supposedly represents? Charles's role as defender of the faith is another key piece of this puzzle. Throughout his life, he has shown interest in alternative spiritualities, raising questions about his suitability for the title. Is he a spiritual leader conflicted with the throne's symbolism? Or do his swollen hands indicate he is fighting an invisible battle to align his own energy with the weighty spirituality of the throne? Prophecies are also often driven by public perception. The physical state of a monarch can be used as a metaphor for the state of his reign. When a leader appears physically robust, the people tend to trust the government's stability. When signs of fragility appear, it can spark uncertainty. In Charles's case, his hands may be interpreted as a sign of weakness, reflecting the growing challenges faced by the monarchy in an increasingly critical world. Another unsettling element is how these prophecies frequently align with times of crisis. Edward VIII's abdication occurred during a period of global instability, and Charles I's execution marked the height of a civil war. Today, Charles III's reign begins amid a climate crisis, political divisions, and debates over the monarchy's relevance. Could these swollen hands be a portent of yet another transformative moment? The influence of prophecies can also be seen in rumors surrounding royal artifacts. The stone of Scone, used in coronations, is considered to possess great spiritual power. Some believe its energy is connected to the monarchy's destiny. When Charles was crowned, he came into direct contact with this stone. Could this have triggered something invisible, yet profoundly significant? The relationship between body, symbols, and destiny is a constant in the British monarchy's history. Physical alterations, such as Charles's hands, cannot easily be dismissed as coincidence. They are part of a broader narrative connecting the past to the present, raising questions about what lies ahead. If Nostradamus, Mother Shipton, or other visionary figures were correct, what do Charles's hands truly mean? Are they a sign that we are nearing the end of a cycle that began centuries ago, or are they a reminder that, even at the pinnacle of power, human fragility is inescapable? The relationship between the British monarchy and secret societies has been the subject of speculation for centuries. Now things are getting serious. If secret societies are involved, better get the hood and the weird handshake ready. Freemasonry, the Rosicrucians, and other esoteric orders often appear in theories pointing to their influence on the UK's power structure. These are not just coincidences or baseless rumors. Historical records show a genuine link between royal family members and these organizations. But what does that mean for the reign of Charles III and his mysterious swollen hands? Documented ties between the British monarchy and Freemasonry date back to the 18th century. King George IV and the Duke of Kent, father of Queen Victoria, were known members of the order. Freemasonry, known for its emphasis on symbols and rituals, may have played a role in consolidating monarchical authority. Its influence is visible even in the architecture of royal sites like Windsor Castle and Westminster Abbey, which display geometric elements associated with the order. But why would such a discrete organization be so deeply entwined with royalty? One theory suggests that the monarchy is viewed by these orders as an energetic knot, a convergence point where spiritual, political, and social forces intersect. The figure of the monarch, particularly in a system like Britain's, serves as a symbol of stability and continuity. Yet this symbol can also be manipulated. The king, therefore, is not just a public figure, but a channel through which these orders might influence the nation's and possibly the world's destiny. Charles III, with his history of interest in alternative spiritualities and holistic practices, appears a natural target for these influences. From a young age, he has shown a leaning toward topics that challenge the traditional dogmas of the Anglican Church. Some theorists suggest this could put him at odds with the traditional energies associated with the throne. But it might also make him more receptive to the occult forces these secret societies seek to harness. Another intriguing point is the use of royal artifacts and symbols. The imperial crown, the royal scepter, and the stone of Scone are more than ceremonial objects. For esotericists, they are anchors of spiritual energy accumulated over centuries. These items, often cited in theories about secret societies, are believed to be instruments used to amplify or direct energy during important rituals. When Charles was crowned, his hands came into direct contact with these symbols. Could his physical condition be a reflection of the energy transmitted by these objects? The Rosicrucians' influence on the monarchy raises further questions. This order, which merges science, mysticism, and spirituality, is said to have intrigued members of the royal family over the centuries. During Elizabeth I's reign, for example, rumors circulated that some of her closest advisors had Rosicrucian links, shaping the kingdom's policy through esoteric means. Is it possible that this influence persists, guiding Charles in a global scenario? Another unsettling detail is the idea that these orders seek not just to preserve the monarchy, but also to control it. During World War II, there are accounts of occult groups performing rituals to protect the UK from invasion. Meanwhile, the Nazi regime explored its own esoteric practices. This invisible battle, fought on a spiritual field, may still be ongoing. By ascending the throne, Charles may have unknowingly become part of this struggle. Royal castles, such as Windsor and Balmoral, frequently appear in theories involving secret societies. Rumors suggest these sites were built on intentional energy points known as ley lines. These invisible paths connect power locations worldwide, forming a kind of spiritual network. If these theories are correct, the British monarchy is not merely a political institution, but an epicenter of spiritual energy manipulated by hidden orders. Charles III, with his profile of seeking balance between tradition and modernity, can be seen as a point of tension for these forces. His swollen hands, often interpreted as a physical sign, could symbolize the difficulty in harmonizing the throne's spiritual weight with his own energy. But is this an internal battle, or something imposed by external influences? Freemasonry, in particular, remains a constant presence in theories about the monarchy. Its symbols, such as the square and compass, appear discreetly in places associated with the royal family. Historical accounts indicate that Masonic rituals were performed to protect the monarchy during significant crises. But who truly controls these rituals? And what is the spiritual cost for the monarch who becomes their focus? The interplay between these orders and the monarchy raises questions about the true nature of royal power. Is the king merely a public figure, while invisible forces pull the strings behind the scenes? With Charles's health under such scrutiny, he may be more of a piece in this esoteric game than he realizes. Theories about secret societies often sound fantastical, but history offers enough hints for us to question what really happens behind the monarchy's curtains. From hidden political alliances to rituals laden with profound meaning, Each element reinforces the idea that the throne is more than just a seat of earthly power. The final question remains: to what extent do these connections influence Charles's destiny, and by extension, that of the British monarchy? Is he being molded to fit these forces' expectations, or is he unwittingly resisting the role imposed upon him? In many spiritual and cultural traditions, hands are symbols of power, creation, and action. For a monarch, this symbolism is magnified. Hands not only bear the responsibility of governing, but also represent direct contact with the divine. In the British monarchy, the anointing ceremony during coronation reinforces this meaning, consecrating the king's hands as sacred instruments of power and leadership. But what happens when these hands begin showing signs of imbalance, as in the case of Charles III? From the start of his reign, Charles's swollen hands have been the subject of speculation and analysis. It's not enough to be king, his hands have to become the talk of the town. Is it a meme, a mystery, or both? Doctors have suggested common causes such as arthritis or water retention, but the public seems fascinated by the possibility that something deeper is at play. After all, in an institution so steeped in symbolism like the British monarchy, every detail may hold hidden significance. Are Charles's hands a reflection of physical pressures, or a sign of spiritual forces in action? Anointing rituals have been performed for centuries, always involving sacred oil prepared according to ancient traditions. During the coronation, the monarch is anointed on specific parts of the body, including the hands, to symbolize his link to the divine. Some theorists believe this act transfers powerful energies to the sovereign, but also exposes him to potential imbalances. Could Charles's swollen hands now be reacting to an energy overload received during the ceremony? In esotericism, hands are viewed as energy channels, reflecting both spiritual strength and the blockages that may arise over a lifetime. Swelling or deformities, according to some traditions, signify an excess of unprocessed energy or internal resistance. For a king who has waited decades to ascend the throne, this interpretation gains momentum. Could Charles be struggling to balance the symbolic and historical energy he now bears? Additionally, Charles's hand condition may be interpreted as a warning. In Celtic mythology, physical deformities were often seen as signs that a leader had lost his connection to universal balance. Kings who showed physical signs of weakness were considered unfit to reign and, in some cases, forced to abdicate. Though we live in modern times, the symbolism lingers. Are Charles's hands telling us something about his ability to lead? The body-destiny connection is widely explored in alchemical traditions. In alchemy, hands symbolize transformation and creation. Physical changes, such as swelling, could indicate an incomplete transformation, a failure to properly channel the energies being transmitted. Having ascended to the throne, Charles may be undergoing a spiritual transition that remains unfinished. Another intriguing point is how Charles's hands draw so much attention, almost as though they are being amplified for the public. In a world where every move of a monarch is closely monitored, could his hands serve as a living metaphor for the current state of the monarchy? Swollen and seemingly overburdened, might they represent the difficulty of sustaining the weight of such an ancient institution in such modern times? Hands also have a central role in power rituals across various cultures. From ancient priests who raise their hands to channel divine energy to modern leaders who use gestures to inspire crowds, they have long been seen as an extension of the spirit. In Charles's case, his hands not only symbolize his power, but also his vulnerability. This raises a disquieting question. What does it mean when a king's hands show signs of fragility? Some theorists propose that the swelling may be caused by external influences. In occult practices, personal objects or body parts are often used as focuses for rituals, whether for protection or manipulation. Though it may sound fantastical, there is no denying the hand's symbolism makes them a natural target for any attempt at energetic interference. Could Charles, unwittingly, be involved in an invisible battle? The relationship between hands and leadership is also explored in religious traditions. In the Bible, hands are repeatedly mentioned as instruments of blessing and miracles. Moses raised his hands to part the Red Sea, and Jesus used his hands to heal. For a monarch who takes on a near-priestly role, his hands carry immense spiritual responsibility. Could the condition of Charles's hands reflect his struggle to fulfill that role? Historically, physical changes in leaders have often been seen as omens. Prior to Julius Caesar's death, accounts describe signs of physical weakness. King John, known for his tyranny, also suffered physical deterioration before his death. In Charles's case, his hands could be interpreted as a warning that his time on the throne will be brief, or that significant changes lie ahead. The notion of omens ties directly to public perception. A monarch's physical state is often used as a symbol of his reign's condition. When a leader appears healthy, the public tends to trust the stability of the government. But when signs of fragility appear, they can trigger unease. Charles's hands, seen as a sign of weakness, might reflect the intensifying challenges the monarchy faces in an increasingly scrutinizing world. Charles's hands may be more than a curiosity or medical condition. They may be part of a larger puzzle linking body, symbolism, and spirituality. If hands indeed bear the weight of generations of tradition and accumulated energy, what are they trying to say about the monarchy's future? Throughout history, physical signs in leaders have never been ignored. They are analyzed, debated, and sometimes feared. In Charles III's case, his swollen hands may be a reminder that power comes with both physical and spiritual burdens. But will that burden become unbearable? Charles III's hands, visibly swollen and laden with symbolism, may be more than just a medical issue. They have become the center of a mystery intertwining tradition, spirituality, and conspiracy, offering a glimpse of the invisible forces potentially acting on both the monarch and the monarchy itself. The history of the British royal family, marked by tragedy, curses, and prophecies, seems to echo in the small details of the present, suggesting that every gesture, every ritual, and every symbol still carries immeasurable weight. Could Charles's hands be a reflection of greater spiritual forces, a sign of coming transformation, or simply a reminder of human fragility in the face of centuries of history? Whatever the answer, one thing is certain. As the British monarchy endures as one of the modern world's greatest icons, the mysteries surrounding it remain as captivating as the institution itself. This story is just one piece, and one day, perhaps we will see the entire puzzle. If this also made you think, subscribe and like the video, as it helps the channel grow. Don't forget to share. After all, more voices mean more discoveries.